This is the Detroit Sports Podcast Network.
The biggest icon in podcasting.
Welcome in, everybody, to this week's edition of Doc and Jock. I am the Doc, John Macaroon. Joining me, my guy Adam, the Jock Strozinski. This is one of our favorite broadcasts of the year, the start of football, where we can get into a deep dive of what we've seen the first week of training camp. And boy, have we been out there looking at everything going on with the Detroit Lions. But that's going to take place in the second half of the podcast. So get ready. We got it all. We're going to talk about all of the important topics regarding the quarterbacks, the linebackers, what we think of Dan Campbell. Is the culture narrative maybe not the same as what it's being portrayed? We're going to talk all about it. But we have to, because it's our duty here at the podcast. We have to look at one of the biggest probably sports crisis that we're seeing in Metro Detroit. And I have never seen such vitriol, anger, frustration that has come out from Detroit Tigers fans than I've seen in the last, let's say, week to 2 weeks. I mean, the Tigers won a ball game on Tuesday, and the comments were, fire Al Avila. This sucks. I can't believe that the Tigers are trading for a minor leaguer with over a 5 ERA in his career. I can't believe that's what you get. And your boy, former podcaster here at the network, Brendan Riley, encapsulated everyone's feelings perfectly. So I gave him a retweet, and I think a little bit of love and rub based off our network because of all the comments and retweets that he got, and I'm happy to do it. Almost over 450 likes. And he posted, the Detroit Tigers let their GM sell a 30-year-old pitcher that he himself acquired in a sale 7 years ago. 5 last-place division finishes and 0 playoff appearances in that span. That level of malpractice would run you out of business in any non-sports industry. And that encapsulated it perfectly. And now Adam's going to take the floor once I give up the mic, and he's going to tell you guys, the fine citizens of Detroit, the listeners of the Detroit Sports Podcast, that you think, based on what you're thinking and observing, that Al Avila, the architect of this disaster, the guy that's causing this vitriol, the guy that's stirring the angst of all of Baseball Nation, the guy that's got all the video guys all crying, broadcasting from their car with their head down, everybody pissed. You think that guy's coming back for real?
Bro, get ready for 7 more years of the same thing. The fact that Chris Ilitch allowed this guy to enter into the trade deadline and allowed him to make moves, also sat there and propositioned everybody in the league to come and take one of your biggest assets in Tarek Skubal. Dude, this guy is coming back again next season, and he'll be back here the season after that, and he'll be back here the season after that, up until the time that maybe he figures it out and maybe he gets it right. Look, thank goodness he didn't trade really anybody of any worth, right? Everybody that he traded were on expiring contracts. They were guys you're going to lose to free agency. Thank goodness for all of that. But going into the trade deadline, basically offering up the one solid starting pitcher that you have, the guy that you can count on, all right? And look, you've seen how his season's gone. It's been up and down, but that tells you where this team is at right now. That right there encapsulates what has happened over the last 7 years. He is coming back. There is zero urgency with the ownership group of this team. Chris Ilitch is just asleep at the wheel, doesn't care. I'm telling you right now, you will have Al Avila as your general manager next year, the year after that, and possibly the year after that. He hasn't got it right in the last 7. I don't see him ever getting it right. This has been a complete blow up and a complete waste of time. And I think the worst part of all of this, he will run your manager off. There's no reason for your manager to come back next season. Like, why? What would be the point? So you can jump back into bed with this team, so you can try to redo it. Look at the contract that Javi Baez signed. Javi Baez is going to be here next season. Javi Baez hasn't done anything of worth to go out and hit free agency again and be able to get himself a bigger deal. So you are going to be saddled again with Javi Baez. And he's been one of the biggest issues that we've had all season. I think that was how we started the first 50 games, was bitching about Javi Baez and how horrible he's been. It has since transitioned into other things, but that was the first 50 games of the season, bitching about the big free agent move that Al Avila went out and got this season. It's been absolutely a disaster for 7 seasons. And I seen that tweet by Brendan. And that, like you said, it encapsulates everything. It really does. And I think the worst part about all of it, coming off of the heels of the way last season ended, everybody was hopeful. I don't think anybody had huge expectations. Nobody was expecting playoffs. It wasn't like it was playoffs or bust for anybody here. All it was let's see you build on what you did at the end of last season. Let's see if you can get into August, September, and just be on the graphic when they're talking about playoffs and the teams that are competing for spots, and just be within 7 to 10 games of possibly making the playoffs. And we're nowhere close. We're finishing dead last in the division. There's a good chance that this team, depending on how the rest of the season works out, they could be finishing dead last in all of Major League Baseball. It's an absolute nightmare if you're a Tigers fan, and Al Avila will be back again so you can relive this nightmare. He is essentially the Freddy Krueger of Detroit, just having you relive these nightmares where he's just killing you in your sleep. It's absolutely abysmal. And honestly, it all lays at the feet of Chris Ilitch. Chris Ilitch, again, asleep at the wheel. There's no motivation. There is no urgency for him to go make a move. It was talked about and it's been discussed, and there are rumors that a guy like Theo Epstein, a guy who went to a team that was completely shell-shocked and couldn't get out of their own way and couldn't win anything in the Boston Red Sox, got them to a World Series and won it. A guy who then went to Chicago and helped the Cubs, a team that were referred to as lovable losers, helped them win a World Series. Theo Epstein at one point wanted to come here. Theo Epstein's got like the biggest brain in baseball. He could help you win a World Series. And yet you're like, nah, we're good. We've got Al Avila. Yeah, because he's got it all figured out. Hey, Al, how are all of those baseball schools coming along in the Dominican? Okay, that's cool. That's what I thought. We've got nothing from Al Avila as the general manager, and Al Avila will be back again next season. It really just pisses me off. And it all hit me on trade deadline day. Because I'm like, how is this guy being allowed to go out and make moves? And leading up to it, I was like, how is he allowed to basically offer Tarek Skubal to anybody? You've seen the way he's handled trades. He's been absolutely raped at the trade deadline. He's just been bent over and taken advantage of, offered no Vaseline, no KY jelly, no nothing. Just stick it in, balls deep, and hey, we're getting what we want, and we'll leave you with the cleanup. And that's what's happened. And it's going to continue to happen. And it pisses me off, John. It really just irritates me and makes me upset because I don't see anything changing. I don't see, like I said, any urgency with the front office. I don't see anybody out there wanting to come in and kind of take this on. I mean, maybe you can get Theo Epstein again out of the Major League Baseball offices, but at this point, I think he's got bigger visions of grandeur of possibly being the commissioner one day. So I don't know how you even fix this because it has been 7 years of the same crap, and now we're hitting the reset button, and we're basically going back to go. It just sucks as a Tigers fan.
See, I disagree with you. I think that, yes, Al Avila was tasked with running the draft and running the trade deadline, but I don't think that he was going to get authorization because I do think that he does have to ask Chris Ilitch regarding a lot of the moves. I don't think he was authorized to go out there and just overhaul everything and just sell everybody because you could have then potentially traded Soto, Tariq Skubal. Yeah, you throw it out there and you say, hey, everybody, I mean, the team is 21 games under 500.
But isn't that a bigger issue, though? Like, if you're going to have a general manager in place and you're going to basically put handcuffs on him and not allow him to do his job, why is he your general manager?
I think you wait until the end of the year because it's already done, and there's a valid reason that this year is a wash because you have really chalked it up to a bunch of bad luck. I mean, just the day before we're recording this podcast, Tariq Skubal leaves a game where he's throwing the ball excellently, and he has to leave because of, what, arm soreness? Arm fatigue? So this bad luck with Turnbull and with Tariq Skubal and Manning just coming back and Casey Mize, they think that potentially it's not as bad as it is, which could potentially be leaning in your favor as to why he comes back. But the signs point to, can an owner listen to the sheer negativity that has been emanating now, that's going to emanate for the next 60 days, and then bring that guy back? I think it's just a foregone conclusion, and they're just potentially, and this is how it's going to go, okay? And it's going to be a win-win for everybody involved. Al Avila is not going to be dismissed from the Tigers organization. He's just going to move up and become an elevated advisor in this organization. And then you just look at it like a promotion. You just say, hey, Al's done this for so long, and you PR spin it to death, but you give it to a guy like Sam Menzin or David Chad or somebody else that's in the organization already, and you just move things along, and you can avoid the PR hit. And then you can keep Al Avila, who I think has really, yes, I also don't believe in his talent evaluation. I don't think that he's got the cachet to pull off creative deals, but I think he was basically the fall guy. I think Chris Ilitch is like, look, we just got to clean the books up, start a rebuild, and look, I'm going to compensate you, give you a bunch of money, but I don't think that Chris Ilitch really believes in Al Avila. He can't. When you see the return that you got, when you see the record that has been produced over the course of these last few years, I just think that he just found any guy that would stand in front of the media and take the hits, and he found Al Avila. But now it's just the fire's too hot. There is no way. You would lose an entire fan base if Al Avila comes back. You would arguably, in a stadium that holds 40,000, might draw 20,000 people on opening day if Al Avila is back. You have major influencers screaming about it. You got old-time veterans, in the media game chirping a little bit. I think that Al Avila was tasked with, hey, just get rid of the expiring contracts and let's keep it moving. And he wasn't authorized to make deals. And he just all spin to say that, I want to do this, and there was no market to do that. He barely picked up the phone, and we probably just had everything so high for Tariq Skubal that nobody was going to make the deal, and you did what you did. I think he's gone. I think it's 60%, 60 to 70% he's gone. There is no way an owner can be that tone deaf. I can't imagine it, and if you are correct, I will give you your flowers, but I cannot imagine a baseball owner looking at the events. Bro, just anybody, go out there and look at any Tigers tweet that's posted from their official Twitter account. The first 5 comments are all fire Avila. After wins, after positivity, after Riley Green's web gem, fire Avila, fire Avila. That's it. You have lost the fans. And when you do that, that is a direct assault on the customers that you're trying to serve. And it's done. The rebuild's over. And he's not going to get another opportunity to rebuild this. And you just look at how devastatingly sick that Fulmer trade was. Did you get anything in return? No, you got a single-A guy, a single-A pitcher.
With a 5 ERA.
24 years old that obviously another organization's given up on. You just made a move. And I just think that at that point, when you juxtapose that to how the Padres have rebuilt and spent money, they were able then to sell off some of their talent to get Juan Soto. Now, that's going to be yet to be determined how that goes, because they have to give up a plethora of young talent to get them. But at least they're in the action.
Do you see what they've been able to do?
Yeah.
So they've got Fernando Tatis,
Whew.
They've got Juan Soto, and they've got Numbnuts from Baltimore that they traded for. Was it Manny Machado?
Wow.
I mean, like, this is a team that has gone out, and they've been the laughingstock of the league for years. And they've been able to acquire talent through the draft, gone out and traded for talent. And now it really feels as though they've got a team that is either on the verge or has a really good chance to win the World Series. 7 years in, there's no hope for Tiger fans. You've got nothing. You have no, like, who are you going to point? You're going to point to Riley Green and what he's done in a limited time this season? That's what you're going to point to? I mean, you've had Spencer Torkelson up all season. You had to send him back down. That doesn't look like that's going to work out 100%. You know what I'm saying? It looks like there are going to be growing pains with Spencer Torkelson. You look at Casey Mize. He was the can't-miss pitcher. Guess what? He's having Tommy Johns on his arm. So he's going to be done for a little bit. Tariq Skubal, he's been incredibly up and down. That was a guy that you probably weren't expecting anything from, but he's a guy who's giving you something. But is he the prize? Is that the guy? Is it a 7th round draft pick that you were lucky enough to stumble on? Is that the calling card of Al Avila's tenure? At this point, it is, because there's nothing else here. There really isn't anything else here, and that's the problem. And look, I understand what you're saying, where he'll get promoted up into the organization, because you're right. You're almost 100% right. That is how it's going to go. But all that being said, do you still want to pick the fruit from the Al Avila tree? I mean, at this point, do you want to go with one of his underlings? Do you want to go with one of the understudies of Al Avila to hope to get the job right? Because I sure as hell don't. To me, that tree is rotten. The fruit from that tree is absolutely awful, and it is garbage. To me, you need to chop that tree down and then burn the stump all the way to the ground. There is no reason for that tree to even be in existence or in my yard. I don't want to see it at all. There's just nothing here, if you're a Tiger fan, to hope for or to grab onto or to be positive about. There's absolutely nothing.
Yeah, it's bad, man. Unbelievably bad. Do you think they could have made any more moves that would have been impactful? Was Soto the only other chip that you potentially could have moved? I feel like when we look at these general managers and Al Avila's like, there's no market. Well, isn't your job, Al? Every year we're screaming, create the market, figure it out. Like, what do you do all day?
There's no market for the last 6 years. It's really, it's unreal. Like, do you remember when JD Martinez was traded? Oh, there was no market. We got the best we could get. What? And like, what did that amount to? You really got nothing for JD Martinez.
Right.
You're right. As a general manager, your job is to go out there, set the market, create the marketplace, right? If somebody wants your prospect or somebody wants your talent, you tell them what they need to bring to the table. Al Avila has had basically his coat pulled over his eyes for the last 7 years. And I don't think there was anybody out there that he could have went and got. I don't think they have the pieces. And I think that's the biggest indictment of this team and this organization. They don't have the pieces or the prospects or the guys on this roster that anybody else wants. And that tells you kind of where it is. You know, Michael Fulmer was a one-time Rookie of the Year. He was a guy who you preached, trade him. The value is high. Trade him now. They held on to him. Ends up blowing out his arm. Has to become a reliever. And he did an okay job transitioning, but he's no Mariano Rivera. He's no guy who's going to be, you're going to pencil him in. He's like, that's my closer of the future. That's my guy who I'm going to lean on. That's the guy who's going to win his games when the ball game's tight and jammed up. He's had an increasing walk percentage over the last 12 months. Like he's not the guy. You don't and that's again, it's an indictment on the organization. You don't have the pieces that anybody wants. So no, there was no trade out there that he could make to really help salvage anything or make him look good, because he doesn't have the pieces, because he's done an absolute garbage job the previous 6 seasons acquiring that talent and getting the guys and turning them into something. You have nothing on this roster. You have absolutely nothing.
It's crazy. It's crazy all the way around to see just how far this has fallen. So then I got to ask you, if he comes back, okay, you're right. Let's say you are correct. And
I hope you're right.
Yeah.
Let's say
yeah, exactly. It's kind of funny where when we both battle each other, this is one of those times where we're like, please just Adam, please just potentially have the doc be right, as opposed to battling it out. But it's going to be interesting. Now,
like, I don't want to be like, I want everybody to understand, I don't want to be right in this. This is just how I feel. This is the way I see things shaping up, because the owner of this organization has given me nothing that says that he either wants to win, or basically he wants to cash his checks from Major League Baseball with their TV deal. He wants you, the fan, to go down there and spend a really nice summer afternoon or a really nice spring day in the ballpark eating hot dogs and drinking beer. And hey, possibly you leave by the 7th inning because, you know, the Tigers are getting smoked and they're down by 7 runs and there's no hope of them coming back. But that is where we're at. That is why I tell you, I hope that I'm wrong, but I believe deep in my core that I'm absolutely right, and Al Avila will be back and will be your general manager for the foreseeable future.
If that's the case, how does Al rebound from what the hell just happened this season? Are you then just chalking it all up to just a bad luck season and everything go wrong? I mean, you get rid of Grossman, you get rid of Michael Fulmer, you move forward, you're thinking about Turnbull and you're thinking about Manning and Scooble taking a step forward, another young arm, maybe Alex Vallejo steps it up. But how do you then go about fixing this? Because everybody says when you talk in circles, you explore the question that everybody's asking, how the hell do you fix the Tigers? Everybody says buy two $25 million bats. But that's not happening. Chris Ilitch is not spending another $50 million after what the hell had just happened this year. They're going to chalk it up to, hey, Spencer Torkelson comes back, you have Riley Green, you pick up maybe one more veteran, you make a couple moves, a couple more young guys come up, and there you go. Maybe you add one bat for $15 million a season, and you pray, and we're going to talk about that as the final topic here with the Tigers, you pray maybe that one of your biggest salaried individuals just goes away. So we'll see how that plays out, but I don't see the moves anywhere, any way, shape, or form, any scenario, if you bring Al back, that can be creative enough other than spending cash to make it where the team wins 90 games at minimum next year.
My initial response is they've got to go out and they've got to hit free agency, and they've got to bring in a veteran arm that can give you innings and can get you wins, and you've got to go get a power bat who can put runs across the plate. But if you're going to tell me like, hey, they're not going to go out there, they're not going to spend money, they're not going to do this, they're not going to do that. I mean, honestly, I don't know how you fix this because I don't trust Al enough with the draft. I really don't trust Al in free agency. But I believe in baseball. You can overpay, right? Like you can say, hey, we'll give you whatever you want, and they'll come play for you. So you've got that luxury of having that open checkbook that is a great equalizer, really levels the playing field, especially when you're a trash organization like the Detroit Tigers are. I'm not 100% sure there's any one thing that can fix this. What I would love to tell you is go to a team that's a winner, right? Go to a team that has a philosophy that you want to instill here with the Detroit Tigers, because I don't believe the Detroit Tigers have an identity. What is their identity? If I would say, hey, Doc, tell me what you believe the Detroit Tigers are, you'd probably sit there, scratch your head, scratch your ass, and you'd be like, a losing baseball team? And I would be like, yeah, they don't have an identity. Like, what are they? You need to figure out what you want to be. Go find an organization that emulates that, and then try to grab either the assistant general manager or the person below that person and bring them in and allow them to have a ton of control, allow them to have a ton of anonymity and be able to do and instill what it is that you're looking for. That is the only way I can see you getting out of this mess without paying a fortune to free agents and having to wait another 7 years until some of your prospects come up. Because I just feel like he's missed on all of it.
Absolutely. And now you hear reports earlier today that Miguel Cabrera is going to be shut down for a little bit of time. He's going to be spelled. His knee is just ridiculously in an amount of pain that is ridiculous, that he's not feeling well, and you can see his productivity decline. And this is the nightmare scenario that we're now coming to see. We all knew was coming, but it's an aging veteran who can't make it through 162 games. We joked, and I think I've always come in high regarding how many games Miguel Cabrera is going to play. But bottom line, whether you agree or disagree with his level of fitness, his body is breaking down, and it stinks. And I was thinking this, well, for the best interest of the team, Miguel Cabrera has to retire. I think that might single-handedly be a decision that, if made, could really help the team. What good is a celebratory tour going to do Miguel Cabrera? He, I think, came back for this year, and if I can just get into his mindset correctly, I would say that he came back for this year, get a couple milestones, have some of the flowers that you have and ceremonies that you've had at Comerica Park, get the nod from Major League Baseball, be the afterthought to Pujols, fine. Even though you weren't acknowledged by the television broadcast, you're at least there as part of the commissioner's list as an honoree at the All-Star game. Do you want to come back next year in 2023 as a shell of yourself, where you're just going to be a DH who hits 200 and a bunch of singles, and you look like a player that is way beyond his prime? I mean, come on, Miguel. Have some pride. Call it a day. Let the Tigers enjoy that $32 million. Do you really need another $32 million? I hope that you take into serious account the fact that your legacy, with each at-bat that looks like that you're having, that you take into account that your legacy is getting tarnished little by little. And I think playing in 2023 would really tarnish his legacy. He has to retire. And I think maybe this might have been the first opening of that door to Miguel Cabrera calling it quits.
I mean, it would definitely help the organization. You'd be off the hook for that salary, wouldn't you? If he retired,
he retires. That's it.
You'd be off the hook for the salary.
You get two bats,
which would then allow you to have more money to spend in free agency to be able to bring people back in. But this is the thing about that contract, and we knew this when they signed it. We knew once we got into these later stages, this contract was going to absolutely kill this team. The hope was you won a World Series or two in the meantime. That didn't work out. The best thing for this organization, the best thing probably for Miguel Cabrera and his body, is just to fade off into the sunset. Yep. Just go ahead, walk away. Like, what else do you have to prove? You've smashed records. You hold on to parts of history. Just retire. Just go away. Take your money. Leave. Help this team out. It'd be the biggest gift this team could get if he was to retire. I don't know if it happens, and I don't think it happens, but it would be the biggest gift this team could get if he retired.
It'd be the biggest gift. I think it needs to happen. Miguel cannot take a celebratory lap. Who would want that? I mean, the money's nice, but come on, have some self-respect. Have the self-awareness to call it a day. You're not the same guy. You have no more power. You don't have it. It's gone. So do what you got to do. Wrap it all up, get what you need to get, and let's handle business. And I think that might be the case. I'm hoping that there's an opportunity for that to take place because it would help the team tremendously in a lot of ways if that were to take place. And I'm hoping that it's a serious consideration, but it's just been tough all the way around with this season. I've never seen it this way, cuz I really haven't. We've ranted and raved about the Tigers, but the vitriol of the fan base, it's not something that we're pleased to talk about. I mean, we could have spent half an hour talking about something that was positive, hopeful, meaningful. Instead, we just spent half an hour bitching about the Tigers and how bad it is. So I think that it's going to be a situation in which the Tigers hopefully really take a serious look at what's going to be in their best interest, and they start to turn the tide because the fans here in Detroit, they deserve so much better. It's a rebuild that's failed, and this is what happens when you have a rebuild and you go with a bunch of prospects. It's super tough, and it's just an unbelievable amount of disappointment that's out there now in the baseball community. But that's enough of that. 28 minutes is way more than we needed to give that team. Let's turn our attention to something with that has shown us a lot more hope. Your boys at DSP have been out there at training camp looking at Aiden Hutchinson all day. And I'm not going to lie. I'll say this. The training camp experience has been great. Getting there super early, out of there by noon most days, and then getting to the office and then creating the content has been a perfect kind of schedule. But it's tough to get up at 6 a.m. every day and to get out there and do everything you got to do. But I will say that the fever-pitched support that's out there is nice to see. It's nice to see the hope there. It's nice to see Aiden Hutchinson. It's nice to see the rookies out there doing their thing, the quarterbacks, to see kind of football back. But when pads come on, when they came out on Monday, it was a whole different vibe. These boys came to hit, and it was great to see. And I think that training camp provides an opportunity for a lot of people to see what's going on. But I'm just going to share this one story before we get into the topics of training camp and Jared Goff and Hutchinson and all that kind of stuff. So I got a front row seat, and Aiden Hutchinson lines up, and he's lining up right across from TJ Hawkinson. But I think he's not expecting, potentially what was about to take place. He goes to make a move, and then he neglects to pay attention to TJ Hawkinson, and Hawkinson lays him out. And I'm talking about full bore, pops him, and knocks him over. And of course, for those of you that know, I'm not going to belabor the point, I was a little bit happy. I was like, oh, there's some physicality here. The hot shot number 2 pick is on his ass. Then Hockenson goes across the middle and makes the catch. So not only did he deliver the hit, surprise the rookie, he then makes the play. It was nice. So then the next day, you just think about stuff to ask about, and everyone's talking about, what do you think about this, and what about this player, and what about that player, and I'm like, okay. So, I give questions, thoughts, and I'm going to ask, but then it just came to me. I'm like, okay, I wrote the article that was pretty good. It was about like, hey, Hutchinson got the welcome to the NFL moment. So I asked Dan Campbell, and I said, hey, what's your reaction when you turn on the film and you see Hutchinson getting his last laid out? I didn't ask it like that, but that's kind of the tone. And he's like, well, of course it's going to happen, and that's good for him, and da-da-da. And it was a nice quotable comment that was made. And then a television personality asked Hutchinson that question, like, how do you bounce back from that? Because the coaches are saying that you bounce back quickly. And it became a narrative. I was like, oh, sweet. And obviously, pro-Lions, but anti-Michigan sentiment came across in the early stages. But he looks good. But I will say this, very muscular, but I just feel like for a defensive lineman, I think he needs like 15 more pounds of muscle to handle business. So my early impressions have been positive about Hutchinson. Just a little bit, maybe defense has the edge, 55% over the offense. Is still, a work in progress with the pads just now coming on. It's still the first week. You'll know a lot more in the future episodes of this podcast. But what have been your observations from what you've read and the things that you're hearing about the Detroit Lions? How have you taken away the first week of training camp?
I think there's a lot that if you're a Lions fan, you can be excited about.
Yes.
I think if in like the case with Hutchinson, you're probably right. He does need 15, maybe 20 more pounds of muscle. But I don't know. He's a rookie. He's going to put that on. He's going to fill out. I think going into year 2, he'll look completely different than he looks in year 1.
Whoa.
And I think he'll be much better for it. But look, I've been impressed so far with everything coming out of training camp. I find a lot of the hype around Hard Knocks to be entertaining. I don't think I've ever seen so many people so pumped up for something. You know what it is? Hard Knocks doesn't go to the good teams. Hard Knocks only goes to the bad teams.
Why?
It's funny.
Because it's a 5-week commercial for your team. It's like, here's the story of Jared Davis coming back to the team and refinding his love. Here's Jared Goff and the guy that was just written off. I mean, you could really have that music in the background and have Jared Goff really ask that question. And if he goes emotional, what was it like to see your team that you got drafted by, that invested in you, and they go out and they replace you, and you have that music, and you just have that like, oh, and then you have Dan Campbell, all there. It's going to be a big commercial for the Lions, and the fact that there's hope here, that there's going to be bad motherfuckers coming to town and play football, and it's going to be really, in essence, what I think you can agree as well. It's basically going to be, look, country, even though you don't like the Lions, we're jamming them down your throat, so enjoy it for the next 6 weeks. And I think that's what we all want here in Detroit. Is like, look, we've been exposed to all this shit. Now you do too. And I think people are going to love Dan Campbell.
Yeah, I mean, I think Dan Campbell is going to be, if you had to pick a star who is going to come out of this, it will be Dan Campbell. I think he will be, 1, entertaining. 2, I think he comes across as very gregarious. Like, he just has a charisma about him that you're like, yeah, love this guy. Like, this guy is great. I think he will be the biggest star to come out of this entire series. I think it'll be interesting, though, to kind of see how they package and how they portray certain players. I think it'll be interesting to see how just kind of how the locker room is, how they show the locker room. Sometimes what they portray isn't always what's actually there. They're always looking for a storyline. So it'll be interesting to kind of see what that storyline is that they put together and that they give us. But I do believe Dan Campbell will be the biggest star of this entire thing.
Yeah, it's going to be great. And training camp has provided a lot of opportunity to look at things. How concerned are you? Because the narrative, and it's interesting. I do want to give you this. The media, when you kind of pay attention to it, is real interesting in regards to how narratives form. And we're going to talk about one of them, one of the big ones that has come out in briefly here. But I think the funny thing is that when you when you start the day and you listen and the questions are like, okay, and then the coaching staff will give the narrative of the day. Oh, we're so confident in Jared Goff. And then everybody's out there going, the Lions are confident in Jared Goff, and you see it in 9 different places, and then you're sitting there watching football, and the ball's wobbling, and the receivers are dropping the ball, and the defenders are smacking all the offensive linemen around, and you're like, what the hell is going on here? Like, guys, it's still the Lions, okay? Yes, they're going to make a jump, but from the first week of camp, I would say 6-7 wins based on what you're seeing.
Offense is a little bit behind the defense.
Yeah, and there's
to put it mildly.
There's the narrative of Wednesday is the Lions are confident in their linebackers. Guys, they have Alex Anzalone and Chris Board. They're not scaring anybody. They're going to get tested first. That's the first thing that offensive coordinators are going to look at and be like, we're going to attack them. We're going to attack Okuda. We're going to attack the slot. So I understand the Kool-Aid and all that, but you have to acknowledge the truth. You can't just poo-poo and say, it's all going to be good. There's going to be injuries. There's going to be setbacks. So you look at the collective talent, and I can tell you, we're there. I message Adam. We talk football. We're not here being negative. We're telling you the truth, which is it's a better football team, but it's not a playoff team. The defense has a lot to prove. And Anzalone was asked today on Wednesday about his tackling problems. And he said, I think it's just a kind of a focus thing. I think when you go through a season and you get tired and you're playing a lot and you have to cue into your technique and fundamentals, your pad level drops, your tackling, your hands, I think that it's something that I have to improve. So, and he talked about it. He said it's basic fundamental football that, when the season goes on, he has to show more of it. But that's what they're counting on. Alex Anzalone, Chris Board, I know the camp darling is Malcolm Rodriguez, and I know he's, a thumper, but he's still got a lot of things to prove. He's a rookie. So you just have to remind yourselves that, easy on the Kool-Aid, but be hopeful it's a better football team, but it's not a football team that's going to dominate and get like 10 wins.
What do you make of possibly this revamped defense, right? And the way this defense might look, where they only have 2 linebackers in the middle. And it might be Anzalone and it might be Chris Board. Maybe it's Rodriguez. We'll kind of have to see as camp plays out. But what do you think about them basically tailoring their defense to what they have without having a strength at linebacker? So what do? You basically minimize that position. What do you think about them going in that direction?
Yeah, I think it's great. I think it'd be a great opportunity to handle business and to do things in the right way. So I think it'd be a wonderful opportunity to handle things in the right way.
See, I think it's really smart. And this kind of goes back to, like, you remember when we were doing shows regarding Rich Rodriguez, and we were doing shows regarding basically with Matt Patricia. Even you can go that far back, where you were basically trying to cram square pegs into round holes. I think this coaching staff is super intellectual, and I think they're super intelligent. I think they know what they have, and I think they understand that you can't address every position group in one offseason or in 2 off seasons. This is going to be a cumulative effect, right? Where they're going to build up talent, but they're kind of picking and choosing where they're going to sacrifice. And I think the linebacking core is a position where they have definitely sacrificed. I think both of us agree. Linebacking core is incredibly weak, right? So what do? You then game plan around that. So maybe you add another guy up at the line. Maybe you add another guy in the secondary. And what you're doing is you're pulling from that middle part of your front 7. And you go 2 guys up front. And you put your 2 best guys that you have up front. And you hope that they just make a big enough impact. And you hope that they don't get destroyed in the middle of the game. So I think it's really, really intelligent of this coaching staff to be able to address what the needs of this team are, understand what they're doing and how they're building, and then basically putting their game plan and their packages around what they've got and how they plan to coach on the players that they have available. I think that is super intelligent. I think it's super intellectual, and I think it's the one thing that we ended up killing Matt Patricia for not doing, because he was always trying to force a system for the players that he didn't necessarily have.
So what do you make of, and speaking of narratives, it's been real interesting to read the report that Dave Burkett of the Free Press did about Terrell Crosby. And it kind of had a feeling of it going that way when a player gets cut, when a holdover from a previous regime has, to impress a coaching staff. And it stuck out Terrell Crosby, if you don't remember, last year when there was organized team activities, he did not attend. One of the rare occurrences when a new regime comes in that a player did not attend. And I think that was eye-opening. And he came out and basically said that, hey, the Lions mistreated him. They viewed him as a player that was toxic to the locker room, and they did not treat his injury with the respect and care that it needed. And he basically said, I would never play for that organization. They don't care about their players. And here's the thing that was my reaction to it. I think it's newsworthy. It's noteworthy that it does kind of put more realism to the narrative of, hey, it's a family. Hey, it's that. Look, guys. Yes, it's basically what Dan Campbell's doing is overcorrecting Matt Patricia. Oh, it's fun. Oh, it's this. Okay, but no, when they mess up on the field, Aaron Glenn and the coaching staff is motherfucking all these players too. Okay? I'm right there, and if you go out there they open it up. You can hear it too. If you drop a football or you're offside or you're not doing what you're supposed to be doing, you're going to get cussed out. They're not going to be like, come on, Jared Davis, get in position, please. I'm just using his name for example. They're not going to do that. It is football. Remember, guys, Dan Campbell is a public figure that is tasked with leading this team, but also the Lions like him because now he's a social media darling. And you can see the difference with all the vast new content. Matt Patricia didn't want to do any of that. He didn't want to have the players talk about what they like for dinner and put it on social media. He just wanted to play football and keep it moving. Dan Campbell's the complete opposite. You put a camera in his face, he'll answer a question. He'll joke around. He'll kiss babies, shake hands, and do all of that. So the narrative that, the Lions are one big, huge, happy family is not true. It's a job. It's a profession. Yes, the bond is there. The players like each other. But it's normal. It's just a normal way that people react and live in the context of a working environment. Now, if you go out and get hurt, all you have to say now, and I can tie it together in one nice bow, undrafted free agent running back Greg Bell one day was on the roster, and he was fighting for a job. And the next day he got hurt, and one day later he's gone. And that's the way it goes. If you can't produce, you're not getting paid. If you don't produce, you don't play. As much as it is, hugs and high fives and love and sound bites, it's football. It's the highest form of earn your keep. Here today, gone tomorrow. And that's the way it is. It's always a business. It's not something these players like to talk about, but they always know, they always live with. If their friends and homies and their agents and the people around them are telling them the truth, you are one fuck up away from getting cut. And that's always the case. Dan Campbell was not coached by Wayne Fonts. He was coached by Bill Parcells. So keep that in your mind when you're all out here like bro hugging the Lions and that they love everybody and it's all this one big, huge party. No, it's football. You play, you show up, you get paid, you produce. You don't show up, you don't get paid, you get your ass reamed out and you get cut. So that was my reaction to Terrell Crosby. I didn't think it was really news in that, but I do think, though, the big thing that came out of it is the Lions have to figure out a way to treat their players better medically because there's been a rash of injuries lately, and it's been a lot.
Yeah, I didn't really think it was all that newsworthy when it came out either. It was one of those things I was like, really? This is what we're spending 800, 1,000 words on? Like, why? Like this doesn't, to me, it really and truly, when you read the story, it sounds like it was a player who had some bitter grapes. Sounds like a player who was thinking he was going to start. Obviously, they go out, they draft Penei Sewell. We all thought Penei Sewell was starting. Penei Sewell gets the start, and this is a guy who ends up with an injury, and next thing you know, he's cut. Like you said, it's a dirty little secret. The best availability is availability. So if you're not available, they're not going to hold a spot for you, especially with where this team is. This team doesn't have the depth, and it doesn't have the luxury of having a ton of star players. So why are we going to keep a guy where we know what your ceiling is and we know what your floor is, and you aren't on the level that we're looking for? So why would we keep you? Let's take a chance on somebody else, somebody younger, somebody else who can come in and has a little bit more, possibly more ability, somebody else who is definitely available and not dealing with an injury, somebody that we can put into the lineup. So Terrell Crosby's complaint against the Lions, to me, it just kind of struck me from out of nowhere. And it just sounded like somebody was just a little bit bitter with it. And I think the way this team is going to build itself is you've got to be able to show up. You've got to be able to play. And if you can't show up and you can't play, you're not going to be here for very long. And I think Dan Campbell's been pretty upfront about that, upfront about what he expects from these guys and upfront from what he wants from these guys. So I'm not sure how Terrell Crosby kind of got this crossed up and is feeling the way he's feeling. Look, I get it. Be upset if you want to that you're not on a roster and that one day you hope to be able to play. But I don't think that's the Lions issue. And yeah, there could be something to be said about this team and their overall health care of how they kind of take care of their team. And that just might be more of a strength and conditioning issue. That might just be more of a medical staff issue. But again, the best availability is availability, and your guys have to be able to get onto the field in order to play. I know one of the big injuries coming out this week was Quintez Cephas going down in a one-on-one drill. And look, don't know where Quintez Cephas is going to fall. We both agree that this wide receiving room is much deeper. It's much bigger. Quintez Cephas, I feel like, is a guy who really has a 50-50 chance of making this roster. I feel like he's a guy who could be on the outs, but he's also a guy who could be your third wide receiver. It's really, really weird where Quintez Cephas is going to kind of fall. So it'll be interesting to see what the rest of training camp brings and see if he moves up or down that depth chart. But he did hurt himself going up against Jeff Okudah in a one-on-one drill. What's a major concern that you're seeing with Jeff Okudah as you're out on the field, you're kind of taking things in? What has you most worried with Jeff Okudah?
His confidence. I think that he's working his way back. I think that he understands the position. Bro, it's just tough. You literally, when you look at the physics of the game, even if the guy was ultra talented, even if he was like super healthy and right on point and everything was superb, it is unbelievably hard to play cornerback because the receiver gets the first two steps to figure out what he needs to do. And when you're up close, you see it. Like, just look at that clip that the Lions released of Josh Reynolds matching up with Okudah. He gets that first step, and then he gets to decide which way he wants to go, and he bursts forward, and Okudah turns the wrong way, and he's one step behind. That's just that's all you have is a fraction of a second. You have to be perfect. So I'm concerned with Okudah that he might lose his job to Will Harris, that he might end up being in the slot. So I want to see the games. And I look at it like this. He bounces back. He makes some plays, but nothing spectacular to the point where you say, okay, he's a shutdown corner or that he's just another player that's trying to fight for a roster spot. Like he's on par with A.J. Parker and Jerry Jacobs. And it stinks because obviously he's coming back from an Achilles, but he's not at the level of a number 3 overall pick. And that's what stinks is that receivers are getting open, Cephas and Reynolds. And, he's made some plays here and there, but the position is just too tough. The league is set up, and big, tall-bodied receivers can get open and handle their business, and they're just too fast. It's just a tough position to play, and it's basically hold on in the secondary. It's hold on and limit the big plays, and if they're made, don't go in the end zone. So I would say pay attention to the games, watch Okudah, watch Will Harris. That'll be a matchup to watch as training camp progresses. But I just don't think that he's going to – I just don't see a player that's going to come back and be productive and meet the level of a number 3 pick. And that's just the way it is. It's just too hard if he was healthy. Now coming back from an Achilles, it's just too hard.
Yeah, to me, it's going to be his speed in regards to that level of play.
Yeah, it's just too tough.
Right. You have an Achilles injury. One, it's hard to bounce back from, especially this quickly. Generally, you lose a step. You lose a little bit of speed when you have an injury like that. It just doesn't come back, and you don't ever really get it back. So it's going to be his speed and his ability to play at that high level. And I think that has a lot to do with what you're saying with his confidence, right? So you're not able to keep up. You're not able to move as quick as some of these other guys on this team. That really impacts your confidence. When your confidence is affected, all of a sudden it becomes a mental thing, right? So it really has a trickle-down effect. And that's where my big concern is with Jeff Okudah. Look, I've been very vocal and I've been very outspoken about my feelings on Jeff Okudah. Not a huge fan. Didn't like the pick. I thought the Lions really put themselves in the franchise behind the 8 ball with that pick. All right? This guy coming off of an Achilles injury at a position where you need to be quick, You need to be fast, because there's a difference between being quick and being fast. But you need to be quick, you need to be fast, and you need to be decisive, and you have to be right. If you go left when you should have went right, next thing you know, it's a 70-yard touchdown, and it's your fault. And there's nobody there to clean up the pieces for you. I don't know if Jeff Okudah ever makes the impact that he was drafted to make. I think you could maybe reposition Jeff Okudah, possibly use him as a free safety, putting him as a free safety. He's got a little bit more field where he can kind of view what's going on. He can possibly put himself in a better position to make a bigger play. But I don't think Jeff Okudah ever ascends to the height that Jeff Okudah was drafted number 3 overall. I don't think he ever makes that impact, and I think that's a huge issue. Yeah. Now, we've already touched a little bit on Aiden Hutchinson. Is his size, is that the big issue that you're concerned about with Aiden Hutchinson right now? Is it how big he is?
Yeah, just how productive he can be. I think that it's amazing. The thing that's going to help him the best is his ability to work against Penei Sewell, Taylor Decker, and Jonah Jackson, Big V. He's going to get better this training camp, no doubt about it. He's got tenacious energy. He really is a physical specimen, really athletic. That's a definition of an athlete. But remember that there's quality offensive linemen in this league. I think the big impact he's going to make is in his rookie year is getting some extra attention that he's probably going to draw from some let's say he's on the outside, he's going up against. If he's on the right side, going up against the left tackle, so left guards and right guards, the extra attention that he gets.
Double team and working through that double team.
Exactly. That's going to open things up for Aleem McNeil, Charles Harris, Austin Bryant, Julian Aquara, potentially to handle the business in the gaps. So I think that potentially can be his big impact his rookie season. I'm not terribly concerned. It's just that, you've seen what a filled out defensive lineman looks like. That's freakish. He's got room to grow and work out over the next couple of years, but we can't wait because we're only 8 days away from the first preseason game. 8 days away. That's what's good. And I think the other thing that people are looking at, and it's the last thing we'll talk about, yes, Jared Goff is a lot more comfortable in his position.
Or no, wait, comfy. Comfy is what we had a discussion about.
Yeah,
we spent probably way too long discussing the word comfy between each other.
Yeah, I think it's kind of a given now that we're allowed to kind of shorten words like TBH, LOL. I'm not typing out laughed out loud when I'm sitting there watching football. You know what I mean? But the narrative is Jared Goff is comfortable. Oh, well, of course he is. He knows the offense better. So that's true. And that was one of the examples where the coaching staff and they started getting ingrained in the media. Jared Goff's more comfortable. Well, yeah, he's got more say in the offense. He knows what's going on. The coaching staff is putting in some stuff that he likes from Los Angeles. So that's fine. But the other thing that's more comfortable is the receivers are better. They're bigger, faster, stronger. He's going to play better. But at the bottom line is we're not talking about a quarterback, can he fling the football around? Is he serviceable? Can he win you 10 games? No. I think that any defense worth a darn with a pass rush, he's going to struggle. He's slow, and his passes wobble. They still wobble. His deep ball is 50-50 at this point. So you're going to have to hope that when Jamison Williams comes, he can earn a step or two past these other cornerbacks, or that Josh Reynolds can get a step, and it's going to be predicated on the fact that you have to run the football. So for me, if the offensive line establishes the run and Jared Goff gets a little bit more of an opportunity to confuse the defense, he'll throw more touchdowns. I think he's going to be around the same turnover rate here and there. He'll frustrate you, but he's going to produce a lot more to the level where it's going to make the decision real debatable. And that's the Lions' luck. It's not going to be clear cut. He's going to be good enough to get you 6-7 wins. It won't be all his fault, but there'll be some stupid tosses that he makes, or there'll be some sacks where he's just sitting duck, where you're like, God, if we just had somebody else, we'd be much better. He is a tweener. He's a perfect tweener. Good enough to play with, but not good enough to win with. What do? I say you cut bait at the end of the year, but it'll be really interesting. Next week, I'll play a clip. I have it. The NFL Sirius XM former offensive coordinator and head coach Todd Haley was doing a radio show, and so I just called up and said, hey, we have a debate here in Detroit, and what do you think? And I'll try to get it up and play it so that we can hear what he said. But I think that the Lions have a real interesting situation with Jared Goff. But I think it's going to be okay, but I just think you have a tweener.
Yeah, see, I think my big concern with Jared Goff and being more quote-unquote comfy in this offense is he's going to put up decent numbers this year. Obviously, the wide receiving room's much better than it was last year. We're going to say another year in this offense. I feel like this offense was basically constructed for him on the fly last year. So being familiar with a lot of the same schemes and a lot of the same terminology and a lot of the same mindset that went into last year's offense halfway through the season, I think that's going to make him a little bit more comfortable as well. I think having an offensive line going into the year that is 100% healthy and is able to perform, like there is no debating the Detroit Lions have a top 5 offensive line in the NFL. They have one of the best offensive lines in the NFL. I think that goes a long way with helping Jared Goff. My big concern is all of those things factor into Jared Goff having a really good season. This team finishes with a better than what we're expecting record, and this team goes out and they re-sign Jared Goff to a multi-year deal. I think that puts the franchise behind again.
Yeah, they don't have to. He is under contract, but he could, if he does ball out, he could ask for a restructure, which could lower his cap hit. So they could do it, but they don't have to. But yeah, if he does, he could be in the neighborhood of, if he wins a playoff game in the ultimate success, he could be in that market. So I absolutely see what you're saying. But let's see. Now we're only 1 week into Pats. So we've seen the vanilla shit. Now it's going to pick up. They've had their day off on Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. We'll have a chance to see 6-7 more practices, and we'll give you the lowdown here at the Detroit Sports Podcast Network, because that hour literally flew by. It feels like we just flicked on the mic and 60 minutes just passed. I can't believe how much fun I had this week. Let's do it again soon. Make sure everybody follows Adam on Twitter at AdamRSTROZ. Follow the network at Detroit Podcast as we break all things down in Detroit sports. A great week. We got to vent, we get to evaluate, we get to speculate, and that's what makes this broadcast and podcast a very successful one. Thanks, cuz. I look forward to breaking down the world of Detroit sports next week on the Detroit Sports Podcast Network.